I'm Spooky Bill, and you're watching Cinema Reviews, where we put the science back in cinema. That's right, you might know me from Pathophysiology of the Living Dead, potld.blogspot.com, or thefearinside.com. Now this show's a little different. We're going to cover things that, well, aren't zombies. And this episode, we're going to cover the brand new card game, Back to the Future, released just today, September 3rd, by Looney Labs. Now, I was lucky enough to get an advanced copy of this to review, and I was able to play it with 5 of my friends, and honestly, we didn't have the best time playing this game, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's 2010. Isn't a card game based off of a 1985 movie a little late to the game? Well, no, it's a time travel game, so it crosses all timelines. But it's also the 25th anniversary, how's that to make you feel old, of the movie, and it's being re-released on DVD and Blu-ray. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, what are you, living under a rock? Go out and rent it right now. It's a great film. Go. Right now. I'll wait. Okay, you back? Great. What'd I tell you? It was awesome, right? Now, if you aren't familiar with Looney Labs, they're a smaller company, but they put out a lot of really great games. Some of them have won awards. One of my favorite games that Looney Labs puts out is Fluxx. I love Fluxx. I love all its variants, Martian Fluxx, Eco Fluxx, Family Fluxx. Especially, I love Zombie Fluxx, because you know I'm a huge zombie nerd. So, Zombie Fluxx, that's my game right there. I actually reviewed that on my other channel as well, and I'll throw links in the show notes. So let's go more into the game here. So let's talk about the stats. It's for 2 to 6 players, ages 11 and up, and contains 100 full-color cards of a medium-weight glossy stock. If you have other Looney Labs games, the card sits their standard, which is great because a lot of independent game companies will print on a cheap paper that wears after a short period of time. Now, the cards are illustrated by Derek Ring, who also did the artwork for Zombie Fluxx, and I also interviewed him on my other channel. Again, links will be in the show notes. I'm really glad they went with Derek on this because I don't know if anybody in the Fluxx family could have really handled this game. Plus, I really dig his stuff. The setting of the game is the same as in the movies. Its timeline is set up using their patented Chrononauts mechanism, starting from when Doc Brown arrives in the Old West in 1885 through when Marty McFly arrives in the future in 2015. That's in 5 years. Where's my hoverboard, Mattel? So each player gets a character card, and the characters you play aren't Marty McFly or Biff Tannen. You play their descendants from separate points in time and alternate timelines. This is where conflict comes in, because one character's creation may be directly related to another player's downfall. Now, I mentioned that there are 100 cards, but 28 of them are for the timeline, and 10 of them are for the characters. So let's look at the timeline. As you see here, there are 4 rows of 6 cards set up as linchpins and riddle points, and each represents a different date in time. I really like this representation of time, and I think it's a really clever way to set up a timeline. Now, the linchpins are cards that represent events. You can change them by traveling in time. Ripple points are the events which change because of the event that was changed in the linchpin. So if I change this event, then it's going to automatically flip this ripple point. However, this ripple point here won't change unless both of these linchpins are flipped. Now, your character cards have events you need to change in order to bring about your existence. For example, if you're playing with Vern Brown, who is the son of Doc Brown and the school teacher Clara, he needs Emmett to arrive in the Old West and rescue his mother from falling into the ravine. But in order for the Doc to arrive in the Old West, he can't be shot and killed by the Libyans in 1985. Now, if Doc Brown rescues Clara and avoids being killed by Buford Tannen in 1885, then Vern has set his existence into motion. However, the game hasn't been won yet, because there are still other players traveling in time. So to win, you have to uninvent time travel by going back in time when Doc Brown fell, hit his head, and invented the flux capacitor. Flux capacitor? Get it? Huh? Get it? But here's the catch. There are 5 versions of this card shuffled and stacked on the B1 spot, and only one of these cards allows you to win the game. The other cards say mysterious forces prevent you. So there's 5 types of cards that you actually play with. And these are item cards. These are useful objects, and you play them by putting them face up in front of you, similar to the way a keeper is played in Fluxx. Now, these cards are a metal pie pan, which in itself is of no use, a case or a pellet of plutonium, which will power time machines. Some of them, like Effects from the Future, will allow you to cancel any other player's turn. Your next type of card are action cards, and pretty much you play this and you do whatever it says on the card. Such as the card, Don't Be So Gullible, McFly, allows you to steal any item from another player. Shopping Spree at Blast from the Past allows you to play 3 cards from your hand. Not Yourself Today lets you discard your ID card and draw a new one, or force another player to do so. Now, the third type of card are called power actions, and most of these can be played out of turn, such as it's a science experiment, which if someone has the overpowered locomotive on the table, which is an item, it allows you to steal it and immediately play another card. Or you can play this out of turn when someone plays the time train, which is one of the time machines we'll get to shortly, and that player's extra play is canceled, and you can add the time train to your hand. Rewind lets you pull any card other than a power action out of the discard pile and play it immediately. And then you have your double backs. These allow you to change history, potentially twice. There's 8 of these cards, and each one's associated with a specific linchpin. Now, this one here will allow you to flip the linchpin at C6, which is Emmett Brown murdered by Libyan terrorists. However, if you have the bulletproof vest in front of you, you can discard it in order to flip any other linchpin that you'd like. And your last cards are the time machine, and these allow you to flip any linchpin. Now, most of these, there's 6 of them, most of these require an item in order to function, and they go in sequence according to the movies. So, Time Car version 1 is the first version of the DeLorean that you see. It requires plutonium. Now, if you have the pellet of plutonium in front of you, you discard that and the time machine, and you can go back in time. If you have the case of plutonium, you can keep the case and just discard the time machine. Time Car version 2 is the 1950s DeLorean set up to work with lightning, and in order to get this to work, you need the lightning prediction. Time Car version 3 is the flying DeLorean that we saw at the end of the first movie and in the second film, and it's fully equipped. You don't need any items in order to work this. Time Car 4, Old and Cranky, does nothing unless you discard any card of your choice from your hand. Time Car 5 requires locomotion. This one requires the overpowered locomotive in order to work. It's the time car that sits on the rails. Then there's the time train, which is fully equipped, and you don't need anything to play this, but you do get an extra card after you play. So I mentioned before that I didn't have a great time playing this game, and you're probably thinking, well, it looks like a great game. You've got a lot of positive comments and feedback about it. What's not to like? Well, part of a game's fun is being able to actually play it with your friends. And if just one of those friends doesn't like it, it sets the mood for the entire game. Now, I'm not what you would call a hardcore gamer. I like to play a lot of unusual games, a little more obscure games, and I have a lot of fun doing it. My friends, not so much. But they all love to play Fluxx. So how would I rate this game? Well, since they all loved Fluxx, but they didn't care for this game, I'm using Fluxx to set the curve. Now, if you know me, you know I don't like numeric ratings. They don't really mean anything to me when I hear them, so obviously I have trouble rating things as on a number scale. I'm more of a buy it, borrow it, don't bother scale like McPierce uses on A Little Dead podcast, which you should check out. So I really have, I guess, 3 separate ratings for this game, for 3 types of people. Now, if you're a hardcore gamer and you love games, I think you will love this game. I would definitely recommend you go out and buy it. If you're a light gamer, I would suggest that you maybe let a friend buy it and play it with them first and see how you like it. And then if you don't like the game, you don't like games at all, well, okay, why are you watching this review? But obviously I probably wouldn't bother. It might be a little too confusing for you. I know the instructions were a little intimidating at first, but after reading it and actually setting up the cards, it was pretty easy to understand. But of course, if you absolutely love Back to the Future, the movie, then well, you probably just want to go out and buy this game just to have. Now, I haven't given up on the game. I still want to play with a different set of people, but I still want to play it. So it's still on my list of games. So I may come back and really enjoy this game. I may not like it as much the second time around either. So we'll see. But I will keep you posted on that. And I'd like to thank Looney Labs for giving me the opportunity to review this game. It was really cool of them, and I'm actually glad I own it. So, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for a future episode.